Hello. Hello. Is it going through? Okay, it's going through.
Awesome.
Actually, turn these filters off real quick. All right. Hello. What up? What up?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome to the podcast. Well, welcome to this live stream where we're going to record the podcast. Hello for anybody that's already joining in. What up? Thanks for joining in. Thanks for following MX Sounds Music Group. What up, Obscure Asian? What up, everyone?
I'm curious as to Obscure Asian. How obscure?
Very obscure. No. We're gonna in about 20-30 minutes we're gonna start recording the first episode of the podcast, but before then we want to take this time to kind of chat with everybody else here and talk about things that you want to talk about, topics or questions that you may have. This is really your chance to kind of influence what we talk about during the show, during the next few podcast episodes. So we got this week. The one set for tomorrow is already recorded. The one set for next week is already recorded. So what we're talking about is starting for the week after that. But yeah, we're trying to, Lou and I will kind of discuss about things that we want to talk about. And then we're going to start recording. Hopefully we'll do another 2 episodes today if possible. And then continue from there. So this is just like a chill stream. Not too much going on. Actually, no, it is a chill stream, but we do have we are recording the podcast.
I was going to say, today is sponsored by Pepsi.
We're gonna, let's see, what did we talk about in the last few weeks? Let me pull up. So this last week we talked about, what did we talk about last week?
You know, I think last week is when I was
what did I talk about?
Sick.
Oh yeah, so we were talking about, I talked about marketing a bit. That's going to be, I think, next week's episode. And then also, what did I talk about? Something else. But yeah, we're going to, actually, hold on. I'm just going to pull it up. I could play it back right now. I'm just listening to the previous episodes. I know y'all can't hear it right now. Okay, so I talked about making money as an artist. That was like the first episode that we brought up. And then we talked about
Vocal compression.
Yeah, then I think we talked about vocal compression.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, sweet. So we talked about vocal compression as well as how to make money as an artist. I think those were like pretty good topics to begin with already. So yeah, we're gonna think about, what up, G? What up? Mixed Medic. I'd love to hear how you guys get frequencies to play well with each. Hold on. I'd love to see how you guys get frequencies to play well together rather than fighting each other when EQing. Odriz, first time chat, says, what's up, G's? What up, Odriz? Welcome. Thanks for coming in. Finally made it to the live stream. Appreciate you coming in, my guy. Appreciate you coming in. Yeah, I talked about artists and how expensive it is to make music. Yeah, it can be for sure. So what are some topics that y'all want to talk about or want us to talk about? I think potentially diving into this last week of live streams, I dove a lot into automating. Sorry, not just effects and delays and stuff, but like the automation of effects and delays, reverbs and delays and whatnot. I think that's a good, useful topic. I think that's kind of one of the few things that takes a mediocre mix to a great mix is the automation of different effects.
Yeah.
We could talk specifically about that. Beat Boy K says, I want to know both of you guys top 3 plugins for creative mixing. You can't choose the same. Creative mixing.
What if we do choose the same?
Creative mixing.
All right, all you need to know is sound toys.
I don't know creative mixing.
I mean, think about it. Creative mixing is really just mixing in the mindset of a producer.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Alter Boy.
Yeah, Alter Boy is actually great. I'm just really sad that they call it Alter Boy, because it just makes me think of like a church kid altar boy that, like, it's like when I hit that high note, it's like suddenly I put the robe on my client. Then you have the baritone in the back.
Thanks for following, Canturer. What up? What up? Yeah, I think creative plugins. I think that's a good thing. We briefly talked about creative mixing in the past, and like we talked about, some mixers are more straight up, keep it as the original, close to the original as possible, and then some mixers are like producing mixers. DJ Swivel, the sauce is good for creative stuff. Yeah, is that the ads that I keep getting? The sauce, you're 1 or 2 clicks away from
this to this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the plugin that you put on every channel. It's like when it's like seeing any of the channel strips from Waves.
It's not that one. DJ. Okay, I'm gonna look it up. DJ Swivel, the sauce. Let me look this up. DJ Swivel, the sauce.
Yeah.
It's
so
a
it's got,
vocal
like,
chop plugin.
Yeah, so it's got like stereo widening and everything.
Spread. I've never seen this one. That's cool. The Sauce audio effects plugin, DJ Swivel's premier creative tool for dramatic vocal processing. Let me show this. I've never heard of this before. Interesting. The Sauce here. Flavor. So pitch and formant shifting.
So a little alter
Sugar
boy.
and spice. Every sauce needs a little sugar and spice. Add your choice of harmonic saturation and overdrive. The spice knob, a chorus, or flanger on the sugar knob. Okay. Squeeze, 2 parallel compressors, smoke, convolution reverbs. Okay. Drip is the delay. That makes sense. Multi-band. So it's just a channel strip, basically, with
a ton of effects.
With just a couple effects, it looks like.
But
Not
I mean,
even a
you
ton.
could use them all in conjunction. Yeah.
You got distortion, some sort of chorus or modulation, delay, reverb, and compressor. Yeah, and some spread and multi-band compression.
And I believe you can
high
do some
and low
pitching.
pass filter and formant shifting. Yeah, it is just a bunch of It's a cool vocal processor. That's cool. Keeps everything
all in one.
I don't need any of these because I have plugins for each of these that I'd like to do it for. But it's interesting that you can do it all in one.
The hard part too is, I'll be honest, I don't always want to do these things in succession of each other immediately after each other. A lot of times I like to do them in parallel, so I don't know about doing them on the track specifically or having to duplicate a track to do it in parallel. Just the drip.
Just
I like
drip.
this.
Hottest samples. So DJ Swivel is a mixer? Or is he a mixer?
He's a producer and a mixer.
Is he a mixer as in DJ mixer or mixer as in like engineer mixing?
Engineer.
Ah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard of him yet.
It's I don't know too much about his career, but in the past what I have seen is that it's like he will also mix for the artists that he produces for.
Got it.
Yeah.
Big distortion
Which is,
engine.
pretty common.
Noctonal. Next generation drum tuning without the need for destructive repitching samples. Wow. Pure destruction from the world's only distortion with dynamic preservation controls. That's interesting. Spread, the cleanest and all-in-one multi-band stereo imaging plugin around. That's cool. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, that one I'm more interested in than the others.
This is kind of like the Imager from Isotope, Ozone series. All right. Beat Boy K, if this drip a bit overwhelming, I find this drip a bit overwhelming. Hold on.
Which
Wait
drip?
a second.
Who's drip?
Hold on. We're
I have no drip.
I'm missing a lot of the the comments here. DJ Swivel Sauce is good for creative stuff. I found Primal Tap to be very fun and good sounding. I do like Primal Tap. No, it's not that one. This is way better. That's the drip you're talking about. As well as Baby Audio Spaced Out. I've heard good things about Spaced Out. His plugins are all goated. Approaches on how to stay consistent with your mixes. For example, keeping... this is a topic request. But approaches on how to stay consistent with your mixes. For example, keeping the same mix bus every mix. All right. We could talk about... I think it's actually the opposite. I don't think your mixes should be consistent.
Yeah, at that point, you've hit a plateau.
Yeah, I don't think it should be consistent. So we could talk about that, how they shouldn't be consistent. Pitcher, flange, chorus, reverb, delays. I find this drip a bit overwhelming. DJ Swivel, all plugins is a bit too much for me, though. Haha, the plugin drip. All right. That's kind of cool. $250, $200 for all their plugins. Those would be kind of cool plugins. I don't know how often I'd use them, but they're kind of cool. This one seems interesting. The distortion engine. The sauce is kind of interesting. Spread is interesting. This one, I mean, they're all different offerings. So honestly, I'd probably try all of them.
When I mix, I actually do pitch people's kicks. So the noctonal actually probably would fit my lane a little more.
Yeah, I'm also like, depending on who it is, especially if you send me kick samples, stock kick samples from Logic, I'm changing that shit. And like by changing that, like I'll do my very best to do it with EQ, compression, distortion. But I do not like the stock Logic beach balls sounding kick drums.
Yeah. The KRK knock.
Boing, boing. That's the stock Logic kick drums. Boing, boing. Have you heard the new The Weeknd song Sacrifice Swedish House Mafia remix? Sick mix, so clean. I have not sat down and listened to it yet.
I don't think I've listened to any of the new Weeknd stuff yet.
I've listened to a couple songs from the new Weeknd stuff, but I'm usually slow to come around to new things.
Yeah, you already know me. I like to live under a rock.
Yeah, I'll come around to it. I usually just have a list of other things to listen to as well. I'll get around to it for sure, because I do like The Weeknd a lot. I don't know. There's a part of me that likes... I mean, I like Michael Jackson the most. So The Weeknd is just a different offering of Michael Jackson to me. and that's cool, but it's not Michael Jackson, so... I don't know. It just doesn't feel that... Anyway, that's just a personal thing. It doesn't matter. Do you pitch individual kicks to fit the bass or just phase shift them? Do you pitch individual kicks to fit the bass? I don't necessarily try to do any sort of pitch shifting or tone.
I mean, when I do pitch shifting, I'm looking for the root note of the song so that I can actually fit in relation to the actual record. Because a lot of times I'll receive mixes where the kick was just a kick that they threw in and they produced the beat. The artists liked the beat and then they kind of just took it from there. But once you actually pitch it into key, you'll notice that your kick just seems to fit better in the mix with less work. So, I mean, I'm not really looking at it for phase. You do want to actually check out phase as you're doing it, just to make sure you're not messing anything up. But you're also not trying to go for like extreme pitch changes, you know? You're not going from A to F. Which actually, if you think about that, it's not that far off if you just go backwards.
I think that... Yeah, the MJ and the Weeknd thing. Like, yeah, for sure. I'm not really ever, like, very rarely do I actually ever pitch things to match the root note of the song or any notes in the song, partially because there's usually a lot of muddiness when you do that to a certain degree, depending. Theoretically, they're supposed to be, because with the bass, you're really only hitting the notes that are in the key, and if the kick drum is also in the key, then you're really just, you're bound to crash frequencies. Versus if the kick drum is slightly off key, then you're hitting a different frequency. The root note is a different frequency than anything else. So you're kind of making space in that sense. But I've never actually thought about that. That's just like theory. I've never been...
You'd be surprised how much it brings the mix together sometimes.
I've done that with hi-hats. Like I've pitched hi-hats down.
Yeah, totally.
But there's a lot more room in the top end. And I've definitely done it a couple times. I've added like our bass specifically around like pitch notes and stuff, but that wasn't like a continued thing because I didn't find like a huge difference in it either.
Like in a lot of rock mixes that I'll do, I'll actually pitch the kick drum in the actual recording stage. mainly from like just tuning the drums. Reason being is that when you actually do the parallel and they're actually like pitched in key together, it actually just sits better. Because, you know, like a lot of rock mixes aren't really like that super hard hitting 808 and kick kind of sound. So the cool thing is that you're really just like making it glue a little bit better without having to hit as hard, but there's a lot more definition in the note of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because in hip hop, like, you do want it to hit hard. You want it to stand out. So keeping it off key could actually help with that. But a lot of times when you don't want it.
Kick drum.
Ew. Yeah, trunk shaker, I'm good on that. Yeah. I like a good knock, but if it sounds like the trunk of your car is destroyed even before you get to your car, like that, I'm good.
Mix Medic said that he's been listening to some Motion Coaster today, which, to be honest, that's pretty dope. How did you find Motion Coaster?
The podcast.
Have I talked about Motion Coaster on the podcast? Do y'all even know what Motion Coaster is? It's been not too bad.
It's got
actually.
some plays.
Still got some monthly listeners and everything. Yeah, Falling is one of my favorite songs I've ever written. As far as like production goes, like very Stevie Wonder, Michael influenced. Anyway, that's funny. I just never thought that anybody would go back and find that stuff. We're gonna talk about. Let's see. Do you want to talk about what's good, Noah? Let's have our first episode. I like the idea of the not consistent mixes thing.
I like that.
And the importance of, how do you say, the importance of listening to the music. I think that's a great.
Or listening to what is relevant.
Yeah. Like, I really do feel like the song kind of mixes itself. Like, the song has a tone that it wants to get to, and I'm just helping it get there to a certain degree. We can talk about that.
Yeah, totally.
And then we could do a business one too. But let's start with that one. Okay. All right, so we're going to start over. We're going to start recording the podcast here. Let me turn off the music. Pause the music here. And you start rolling and recording the video. Literally all of our podcast episodes are like this. We kind of think of the topic on the spot. Sometimes I'll go and do some research, but not really. Here it is. It should be recording. Yep. I'm going to wait to that line. Hello and welcome back to the Mix of Music Podcast. I am your host, DK, and with me, as always, is...
Let's see.
You're going to put the pressure on?
I'm putting the pressure on.
What was the name that we had this last week?
Hulu?
Did you come up with that one, or was that someone?
I came up with that one. I don't think we used it, but I know we shouted it out.
Hulu?
We were just kind of coming up with some weird ones.
There was somebody else that said something that I totally forgot about.
Sword Art on Lou.
What?
Sword Art on Lou instead of
on
online.
Or you could just said on Lou. Yeah, that's funny. There's a couple funny ones that people put in on the Discord. So anyway, I think we'll take this time to pitch our Discord. Mixing Music has this podcast. We have a Discord. And that Discord you can find on mixingmusicpodcast.com. Join in our Discord. Discord is basically an awesome online text-based community. It's really great that you could chat with other people, instant message with other people. And we're really, really grateful for anybody that's in right now. We have about 550 other producers, engineers, artists right now at the time that as we're recording this episode. You can find the link to join in the secret club at mixingmusicpodcast.com. Also, Lou and I are live right now on Twitch as we record every Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That is 2 p.m. in California, LA time. And we are live on Twitch right now. We do that 2 p.m. every week. And we're really grateful for anybody that's hanging out with us right now. We see a lot of awesome people in the chat. Mix Medic is here. Noah is here. Noah Avery is here. We have Greener on the other side. A bunch of shout out. Beat Boy _K. O'Driz. A lot of shout outs here from people that are watching the stream right now and commenting as we kind of go along. But today we wanted to talk about something that one of our commenters brought up during the stream, which was the importance of consistency in a mix. The original question was kind of surrounding around how do we keep mixes sounding more consistent? And I think that I wanted to change the topic instead to be less about how to make things more consistent from mix to mix, but rather the importance of allowing the songs and the mixes to be different from mix to mix. Because I think even if you listen, if you've ever sat down and listened to an engineer's discography, like, right, if you go down and listen to Manny Marroquin's discography, all of his stuff sounds really great, but even within the same album, from song to song, there's differences. And I think that that's what's beautiful. From artist to artist, there's differences. From genre to genre, whatever, different categories. There's always differences between mixes, and I think that's what makes mixes beautiful. A part of this argument that I've said in the past is that a lot of mixes, a lot of songs, you can hear by the production and the recording. The recording engineer does have a lot of influence in this. The song has a sound that it wants to get to, and oftentimes I feel that, yes, I'm manipulating the way that I would, but part of it is me just helping to get the song where it already wants to go. So let's talk a little bit about that. Lou, I know that you do a lot of mastering recently.
Yeah.
And so you hear a lot of songs done by different engineers, mixed by different engineers. What is your opinion on consistency versus differences for specifically mixing?
Well, honestly, if I had to say there was any kind of consistency to look forward to, it's understanding how to get a mix to translate and to not have anything that really stands out too much. For instance, like I'll get a mix from Bob Horn. Bob Horn has really, really good tight mixes and everything. And, you know, he'll send me a hip hop track one day with like hard hitting 808s. He'll send me some pretty top endy kind of hi-hats. But it's nothing piercing, it's nothing boxing, it's never anything that's cloudy in the low end. But then the next day, he'll send me like a rock mix. And the same thing can be said about that. The style of mixing is completely different. The overall tonal differences between one or the other is very different. Like in rock, it's a lot of mid-range and less about the low end. But the clarity consistency is what I'll get from him. You know what I mean? And then I have other mixers where, you know, they'll send me 10 different songs. I'll mix an album for them, and they'll have different feature artists, but all of them sound the same. But because of that, you kind of lose interest in it. There's no difference. There's nothing to pinpoint like, oh, I like this song because of this. Oh, this one, I like how the snare sounds a little bit more this and that. But those differences is what keeps the listener, you know, interested. And as the guy that's mastering like an album or an EP at a time, it'd be really sad to be bored of the album on the first listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do think that there's also, if consistency was important, they wouldn't hire 10 different mixing engineers to work on the same album.
Yeah, and even then, they wouldn't have 10 different engineers compete on a single for a big artist. They'd just be like, well, that guy's always got the same sound every single time, so we're just going to choose that one.
So now we're talking about consistency between, or the differences between each engineer.
Yeah.
So originally I was thinking about how it's important as a single engineer to have, or to at least consider and try different sounds. But you're talking about the importance of different engineers, between the differences between the engineers, which is also valuable, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So let's go a little bit further deeper into that. So each engineer does sound different, and I think that there's a balance because every mixer will have their own sound. Some mixers I would like to call more new school or new age mixing, which is brighter, less mid-range focus, more low end and more top end. You can usually tell the younger mixers by not just their genres that they specialize in, but their use of top end is usually different. Like the younger people tend to have more top end versus some more classic cats will be a little bit darker and warmer and more like mid-range focused. I don't think that one is better than the other, but I think that there's like a cultural genre shift happening there. And I definitely think that I really like how you put with Bob, there's although the mixes and the genres and the tonal spectrum is generally different, the tonal balance is generally different, but what's consistent is the clarity.
Yeah, the quality of the mix itself is what's consistent, not the mix itself.
So even the point of saying like the vocals could have probably been different. One was probably brighter than the other.
Yeah, honestly, like just like you, a lot of times when I'm mastering for Bob, it's all about micro changes. And those micro changes are really just presence changes, but they're not like, oh, there's too much of this or there's not enough of that. Usually his mixes are on point all the way. They just might need a tiny little touch, if anything. And that's kind of the good thing. Like a mastering engineer, many times over, is more about getting the record to translate, not about reinventing the mix. So you know when you're dealing with a quality engineer when there's consistency behind their quality rather than you having to consistently correct something in their mix.
Yeah. And so I think that's going, and as well as when you're mastering, you're listening to a lot of mixes, which is really interesting because I do listen to a lot of mixes, partially from people who show up to the Friday morning streams, and do Mix Feedback Friday where I get to give feedback. We do feedback. You can also do mix feedback from mixedmusicpodcast.com. But we do give a lot of feedback to mixes on various different occasions there. But one of the things that we've also talked about is, or I personally don't really listen to other mix engineers other than the finished product, right? And I do hear a lot of like demo mixes from the recording engineers or from producers and various things. And then it's my job to kind of transform them. It's really interesting to hear the similarities between mixes from the same engineer, like the recording engineer or producer. For example, one of the mixes that we just finished recently was for Gavin. Like Gavin has a very specific type of sound vibe that he's going to, especially with the artist that he's working on, his wife, Nicole. And they have specific tones that they kind of go for, and they're pretty consistent on their end, and I try to be consistent on their end too. But even the 3 initial songs that I did for them, each one sounds a little bit different. Now, I think partially it's because I was in a different mindset, or maybe I had different speakers or whatever, maybe some different equipment, different room. I don't think that was as much it. I think it was just the arrangement had a huge effect on my mixing as well. And we've said this time and time again, the importance of arrangement. And it's very difficult for a mix to be really, really solid and clear without good arranging abilities as well. So going back to Lou, what are some secrets that you've seen to help help mix engineers stay consistently, we'll say clear, the clarity, to keep that clarity consistently? What are some things that you've seen?
Send the mix back.
How do you?
If it doesn't sound good, send it back. A lot of times people think that you can correct it in the master, and that's not really the case. You can do a lot of enhancing.
I'm sorry. Let me rephrase the question. I think we're misunderstanding. What similarities have you seen, like traits, similar traits that you've seen between mixes?
Mid-range and darker top end. Reason being is that many times over in like hip hop, R&B, everybody wants like bright hats, or they want their really bright reverbs. Like a lot of people perceive top end to be kind of a clarity factor, but you'll notice that a lot of these engineers that actually have really good mixes have smooth top end, but it's because instead of boosting the top end on every track, assuming that it's going to help with the clarity, because, you know, that's how we are. The human ear thinks that clarity comes from top end. It's just a natural, you know, I guess, reaction. But the reality is it's about leaving the real estate in the top end available to that which needs it. If you notice, like a lot of great hip hop mixes actually don't have like a lot of bright instrumentation behind it. They leave the brightness for the vocals. And because of that, they don't actually have to boost the brightness in the vocals much.
Other than trap hats. Trap hats are freaking bright all the time.
Exactly. But that's because they want them forward in the mix. And a lot of times people assume that if it's brighter, it sounds a little more in your face. And because of that, they'll put everything in their face. But you need depth. You need to find pockets for everything to exist in. For instance, like low end, you'll hear a lot of like trap records where the vocals are cut below like 180 hertz. Not because that's where you should cut every time, but they're trying to find ways to get the 808, the kick, and all those low frequency information instruments to really have their own pocket in that range. But I've noticed that like when I've gotten like Aphrodisiac when I mastered that for you. There's so much going on that everything needs to have its pocket. So some of the instruments, I could tell that there was a lot of filtering going on because it couldn't clash with something else that was right next to it in similar spacing. A lot of times you'll see people looking for ways to get the mix to translate better in stereo, so they'll pan things out. But when you listen to it in mono, when you're doing like the final limiting and everything to see if anything that was done in mastering affected it more, you'll find that sometimes just adding more to the mid-range will also make it clash on its own. So oversaturation is kind of a thing. I know we talked about saturation and clipping with Bob, right? Like how to get the song to hit a little bit harder, limiters and all that stuff. And he was talking about just clipping the transient was helping him make the mix. And the funny thing is, Bob will turn in a mix for mastering at like -7 loofs, and it sounds like it's got all the headroom in the world.
Yeah, he does. He does deliver mixes really loud. Anyway, so I think there's a couple things I want to bring out or talk about that you said, which is I do want to and emphasize this as well and clarify on this. You said a darker top end. It doesn't mean that better mixes have less top end.
No,
and they're
it's
warmer.
just have
It means
open
that
space.
I like the way that you explained it. Yeah, there's real estate. You think about the real estate in the top end and how much space there is up there. If everything's bright, because it is true, when things are brighter, it feels more high fidelity.
Yeah.
It feels more hi-fi to the average listener, and even to us, it feels more clear. But I don't think that that's the solution to make everything bright, because I've also heard a lot of mixes that could have been much better if things were darker. And I'm not saying that your mixes have to be dark, but I'm saying that there's a lot of clarity that can be added without making the top end harsh. So thinking about, and in general, I think I like that idea process. I'm going to keep going with that, which is thinking about the real estate of frequencies. Like you only have, for example, guitars and pianos are all in the same, like usually in the same lower mids to mid range kind of information. And then let's say you want to stack on some synths and then some organ, and then you want to do some mellotron, and then you want to do some Wurlitzer. You're just asking for a muddy mix. We haven't even gotten to the EQ thing. Like, how would you? I cannot conceive how you would EQ all of those instruments to potentially even sound good at any point, without absolutely demolishing the original tones of the song, which comes back to, again, the arrangement, how important the arrangement is. I think a really good producer or recording engineer producer, songwriter, artist will take the time to think about the mix before getting to the mix, before thinking about the mix. For again, going back to that, like if you don't need to stack a guitar 20 times along with an acoustic piano, along with a Wurlitzer, along with an organ, along with a synth pad. Like sonically, it makes no sense. Now, unless it's absolutely vital to the arrangement of the song.
Exactly.
But I know a lot of these producers, because I'm victim of this. I've caught myself doing this a lot as well. When I'm writing songs and producing, I'll layer stuff just to layer stuff because I think it makes it thicker.
And then it's too thick.
I wouldn't even use the word thick. It's just muddy.
Ever work on a song, listen to it the next morning, you're like, what was I thinking?
Yeah, no, that definitely has happened for sure. And I think that that's something that we should all be avoiding as well. When we're writing songs, I think the mix has to start with the arrangement, with the songwriting, with the, talking about sections as well, like from chorus to verse. I think the one reason why I find myself automating tracks a lot less in hip-hop is because usually the kick drum in the chorus versus the verse is a totally different sample. Like they're on different tracks. There's a chorus kick and a verse kick. It is a pretty common thing to see. And if that's the case, I don't need to automate anything. But if you're in a rock band, you got the same drum kit, and in the chorus, the only thing that you could do is play louder, which
if you play harder, you do change the fundamental note.
Yeah, and then that way, so again, it comes back down to automation is extremely important to letting things breathe and calm down. But going back to the original idea of consistencies in mixes and then similarities, differences in mixes as well. Lou, you've heard a lot of my mixes. There are some, do you think I have a sonic character, a tone that I impart? And also, have you seen a lot of differences between mix to mix?
Yes. I don't know if you were looking. Okay.
Yeah, you want to expand on that?
Part of that was a quick answer because, I've heard your mixes, and I've heard your mixes for the last year and a half. And that sounds like a long time, but it's also not if you think about it. A year and a half in somebody's career isn't really a long time, but it's a long time when you think about how far your sound can change. For instance, you've more recently been doing more automation, both on effects and on vocals and instrumentation. That I could pick out from before and after.
In the last year and a half.
In the last year and a half, yeah. In the last year and a half, you've also gone through 3 sets of monitors, ATCs, PMCs, and Strauss. And actually the Callies too, so 4. But in that same sense, you've also managed to keep the vocals being the forward element in your mixes. The 808s and kicks will always hit hard. You're very percussion forward. Pads and synths and things of that nature tend to sit further in the back. So I don't know if you're filtering out more or doing fast compression on that with slow release to push them further in the back. But
so there are character personalities.
Yeah, you have a depth difference that is led by vocals and percussion. But the consistency is that. But it's not consistency in tones. It's in the elements placement in the mix, which I've known for you is all about placement in the mix.
That's interesting. Can you talk more about this? Because I myself have not really. Keep going.
We're all our worst own judge because we don't know how to judge our own stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Well,
yeah,
go ahead. What do you mean by that?
Placement in the mix to me is very typical for somebody who will OCD over like aesthetics. For instance, if your hi-hat is completely left, it just feels really weird. But your hi-hats,
like panning.
No, panning, front to back depth and things of that nature. Because I always tell people, if you're going to mix a song or write a song, you got to be able to visualize it. Outside of that, it's just this flat mix that has no life to it or character. You have a very 3D positioning of your mix in the sense that you like your percussion to hit hard, so because of that, you leave the transient in your percussion. Your vocals tend to have a lot of parallel compression going on, or at least that's what it sounds like, because they tend to sit consistently in the center, but forward, without going too forward or having too much transient, pushing it even further forward. Your low end tends to be pretty well spaced out in the sense that there's not a lot of things going on in the low end, so it actually takes up all that low end real estate, making it sound more forward, even if it doesn't hit as hard as the kick does.
So I think this is a really good point to talk about, where in the last year and a half, you've seen a lot of changes, and whether or not it's progress is debatable, right? I think it's progress,
but it's more like adaptions.
That's kind of subjective, but you have seen also consistencies, things that I prefer, which is really. This is the thing that I think that we wanted to get to for this episode.
Character of the mixer.
Yeah, the character of the mixer, you'll find some consistencies, but the consistencies is not necessarily the tonal balance, the tonal spectrum between songs, the top end versus the low end versus the mid-range. I think that for sure my sonic character is drums, transient, and vocal forward. Mm-hmm. Kind of that like energetic forward push. And then I also definitely think that like you've also heard like some of my funk mixes where they're like really dark and Wolfpacky, really mellow and like really smashed to hell and just fun. You've definitely heard some of that stuff. So it's kind of like all over the place, but at the same time, there's similarities and consistency. So is that I definitely think that every mixer. What about yourself? Sorry, let me go back. What about yourself, Lou?
I don't know. I'm my worst
mastering,
judge.
Even with just mastering, not mixing, not producing, not song, anything else, just mastering. Have you changed in the last 6 months?
Yeah,
a touch.
Absolutely. You know me. I'm much more of a leave it natural kind of guy, or make it sound open and things of that nature. I want to make the mix sound exciting, whatever that means. It doesn't always mean vocals forward or transients forward or anything. The thing that I usually do is I give the mix a sense of energy behind it. Like I came from rock, and rock is nothing about feel or anything. It's all about like you want to go see it live. You want to feel like you're actually able to like play guitar alongside it and really smile when you play alongside.
It's all about the feel.
Song. Yeah, no, it's always going to be about the feel, but like I want to bring back that emotion that I had listening to my favorite bands, learning how to play guitar, really wanting to be involved, really wanting to join a band. If it's not emotionally capturing, which whatever that means, then it's not good enough for me. So when it comes to mastering, it's not about changing their mix, but really emphasizing what really caught my attention about it.
And the thing is, going back to the point here is that you've changed your workflow and your preferences
Yeah.
in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Could you even say that within the last 2 months?
Yeah. I could say that about the last week.
There you go. So I think that's one of the things as well is it possible? Let's say, I guess it would be possible to stay consistent for years on end, right? But is that the best thing?
No.
Is it better for engineers to adapt and change, or is it better to find a sound that you're really good at and stay that same?
It's better to adapt and change within your own realm.
Okay.
You don't have to go to your neighbor's house and try to eat their food. You can like what they're serving. You can take the little pieces that you like of their dishes and adapt it into your own, but you don't have to eat their same food. So completely revolutionizing yourself year after year after year is not necessarily the case. It's more about how to improve yourself, because you're only, what is that everybody always says, you're only in competition with yourself.
Yeah.
Well, the reality is, if you want to be the best version of you, stop trying to follow everybody else's innovations and just see what it is that you like about it and how it would fit your own. With that said, like you said, you were, looking for what is it that's changed in my mastering. Your speakers changed a lot, but your mixing didn't change a lot. But you're listening, what you're listening for, in what room you're in has changed. So you've actually picked up a lot more technique in how to critically listen, which has actually resulted in better mixes, better depth control, and all that. You've actually learned to identify what it is that you're looking for when listening to certain monitors, which is something that I could say that was not the case a year and a half ago.
For sure.
So with that, your mix is going to improve either way.
Yeah, and I do think this is the thing that we want to encourage. I think I tweeted this the other day, which is just a thought that I had.
That Lou is handsome?
Yeah, Lou is handsome. That's
I
what
like
I tweeted.
that tweet.
No, I tweeted, and I don't think that this is, I'm going to segue into this, but I tweeted, entrepreneurship is just being a professional mistake maker. And
yeah,
and I think that the value of I think it's very valuable. And the reason why we want to try to change and adapt our sound always is because as we experiment, as we try different things, whether or not it actually sounds better. Like, I think it's just as valuable to do something and to later find out that didn't sound better as it is as valuable to find you do something and later find out, oh, that sounded great. I think it's equally as valuable.
Yeah, honestly speaking, like, I think most of us are learning the tricks of what we did in the mix are literally us maybe doing too much of it on somebody else's mix in the past, which at that point, I'm sorry, people. If I ever made a mistake on your mix or trying something new, my bad.
You should have asked for a revision, so that's on you. So,
yeah.
But that being said.
But you helped me grow.
Yeah, no, and I think that that's part of it too. Like, there's a lot of mixes that I've done that weren't as good. That
even later in the career.
The artists even later. Even, I would say even now.
I listened to a mix I did 4 years ago, and I was like, wow, that was pretty good. How did I not remember about this mix?
And I've definitely done that too, where I go back and like, oh, this is going to suck. And I listen back and just like, actually, that was pretty good. Not gonna lie.
It's like, I can dance to this right now. Hold up.
So I think that it's also impossible to expect yourself to be able to do a good mix every single time. This is something that I've talked about on the stream before. I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but on the stream, I've talked about how even among professional Grammy-winning mix engineers, not every mix is going to be a hit. I'm sorry. It's just not going to.
I really like what, who was it? Somebody had brought up a conversation that they had with John Costelli about how they were, I guess, hanging out or whatever. I forget what the context was, but John had gotten notice that his mix wasn't selected, that they went with another engineer. And his reaction to that was like, well, can't win them all.
Yeah.
That's it. Oh, well.
And I think that's actually a really beautiful mindset. No matter what you do, is you can't be devastated by the one loss or the small thing that, even if it wasn't even a loss, but you felt like it was. Like, for example, the client liked the mix, but you yourself weren't satisfied with it. I don't think it's a good idea to get like devastated by that and let that affect your next one.
You know, I actually thought about sending somebody a revised mix to a song that was on their album that I just personally wasn't confident with, but then I started seeing, I guess they uploaded it to SoundCloud, and a bunch of people were like, oh my God, I love the vibe of this record. Like, I like the way it crunches. It makes me feel nostalgic, this and that. And I was like, I actually wanted to correct that crunch.
Yeah.
Huh.
That's interesting.
Personal taste versus what actually works for the record is two different things.
Yeah.
And I think part of our growth is identifying that too.
Absolutely. So I think that those are some good thoughts about like similarities and differences between mixes. And I really hope that this helps you. If you're interested in learning more about mixing, you can go to mixingmusicpodcast.com, check out all of our other episodes. We have over 150 other episodes. Lou and I are on Twitch. You can go to twitch.tv/Mastered by Lou. Lou is on Twitch every Monday night at 6 p.m. streaming. Are you doing that today?
Unfortunately, not today. January 17, I will not be streaming live at 6, mainly because
we have a session.
We have a session. I just did a complete computer swap in Studio A.
It's not set up yet.
So my setup at home is actually completely unplugged. So I may be able to stream some Pokemon. Who knows? But that's not mixing.
Yeah,
so maybe I'll try to jump on and do. You know what? Maybe after this, I'll go buy a green screen and see if I can set up the GoPro at home.
So twitch.tv/Mastered by Lou. If you follow him, then you can get notified whenever he goes live. Same thing with me. Twitch.tv/DK Mixes. I stream every Monday afternoon for the podcast, and then Thursday mornings and Fridays mornings for a couple hours each day. Check it out. We have a lot of content in store, and we're talking about content earlier today, which we may talk about in the next episode because I have an idea for the next episode. But on that note, we're really grateful for anybody that's come through. If you're listening on Spotify or on Apple Music, please leave a 5-star rating. If you're on Apple specifically, please leave just a couple words comment as you do so. That really helps a lot. When you rate us 5 stars, that really helps the podcast grow. It's a free way of supporting the channel and helping us grow. So we're thankful for anybody that dropped by. If you're interested in any of our sponsors, anytime that you purchase anything or check out or use any of the links from mixingmusicpodcast.com and click on the sponsors tab, we get a little bit of kickback. So that's another way of supporting the show. We appreciate anybody that stopped through, subscribes, like, and follow, whatever, all that jazz. Happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
Cool. And by the way, guys, so you know, part of our sponsors list is Plugin Boutique. So if you guys are looking at that DJ Swivel plugin, last I remember, I believe that DJ Swivel's plugins are sold on Plugin Boutique, along with a bunch of other brands like Isotope and everybody too. So I know you can go directly with Isotope and get them there, but Plugin Boutique seems to have some pretty great deals. Is Corn F on Plugin Boutique?
Oh, good question. I don't know.
Because if so, I'm going to buy it through Plugin Boutique. Lately, anytime I buy a plugin, I check Plugin Boutique first.
Okay, when you do, just make sure you go to the Mixing Music podcast.
No, I do.
Okay,
I do.
No. That's funny.
That's how I bought my Oxford plugins.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely use it as well. When I buy copies of my own book from Amazon as well, I'll use my own affiliate link. I'm pretty sure that's cheating, and if I get caught doing that I'll get disqualified. No, well, technically I'm doing it from a different account. I don't know. It's really gray area. That sounds really sketchy. I'm not going to ever talk about that again. I
don't know if you know, but I have 100 computers at home that all watch my live stream, so I could pretend I'm streaming to someone. No, I'm just kidding. That's a lot of computer power to
100. It's damn, your internet's great.
It's terrible because of this. That's why it glitches out. No.
This next episode, I wanted to talk about. This is going to be like a marketing thing. I might do a marketing rant. Is changing the perspective. So I got on a call. Every once in a while I do this. Someone DM me saying they needed help. And if they're a sensible person and the question is sensible, it's not something that they can just Google. If it's something that you could just Google, or if it's someone that's obviously just clout chasing or just I don't know. If it's weak, then I'm not saying that anybody that's texting me is asking weak questions. Not that at all. But if it's more genuine.
There is a website called Let Me Google That For You, where you could type the question in, send them a link, and it'll literally show you a video of you typing it into Google.
And it depends on how happy I am. If I'm overflowing with happiness, if I'm doing mentally good that day, I may just hit you up on the DMs and video call you. So I did that with someone that DM'd me yesterday asking questions, and I just video called them. We had a chat for 30 minutes. Shout out to Michael Choi. He asked about... I'm a recording engineer and I'm an assistant for Paramount. So he's doing all right. He's an assistant for Paramount Studios, and he wanted to find out how to get more clients from recording and or mixing, and specifically how different ways of finding success as an engineer and the benefits throughout. So for example, he said, at first, my goal was to change his mindset. The first thing that he said to me is, I need to figure out how to reach out to more people. And I want to make an episode about this because I think that's the wrong question to ask. I think that's a good question to ask. Like, how do I reach out to more people? I think the better question is, how do you get people to reach out to me?
Yeah.
And I think that this is something that I definitely specialize a lot more in. And we could talk about like the importance of credits. For example, like credits are really, really important. But the reason why they may be hindering, and I'm not saying credits will never, ever be hindering unless it's with someone that's been canceled, right? But I do think that the one difference between me and most other local engineers so far, and there's good and bad, there's pros and cons, but no matter who it is, anybody that hires me is because of me. It's not because of my credits. It's not because of my price point, because I'm definitely not the cheapest option. They hire me because of me, which is a really great reason for people to hire you. That's how I keep client satisfaction really high. It's because they're not coming to me hoping that they can make me sound like a record that I produced, or they're not coming to me hoping to make me sound like make their mix sound like what my cost. My value is not how little I charge. My value is not my names, although that's part of it. My value is the fact that I'm DK. Does that make sense?
I feel like credit still plays a major role.
Oh, it definitely does.
Yeah.
It definitely does. But at the same time, like, yes, I have a couple dope credits, but I'm definitely not like a TZO, for example.
Yeah.
Like I haven't consistently worked with Chris Brown for a long time, and people come to me because of that. And I'm not saying that that's bad, but I'm also saying is that that's not necessarily the best option, especially because there's a lot more options people don't see. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, like this happens all the time for assistants. I was blah blah blah's assistant. The number one complaint about that is these engineers, and some of them are really sensitive about it after the fact, is I'm no longer the blah blah blah's assistant. I am me. I am not this person's assistant. I am me. Yeah. And that's the thing about the beautiful thing that I've been able to do with my brand is that whenever anybody comes to me, it's not because I was anybody's assistant. It's not because I worked with anybody. It's not because I charged this much per hour. It's because I'm DK.
Yeah.
And so, like, I think we could talk a little bit about that as from, like, an artist perspective as well as, like, from an engineer perspective. I think it was a really good question, and I feel like I was able to answer it relatively well, but it's going to take some thought. And I know you have some insight on this because I don't think, specifically about the credits, I do think credits are absolutely important. Client history is absolutely important.
I mean, for marketing, it's very important because funny thing is, everybody you're marketing to, not all of them know who you are. In fact, the majority of them don't know who you are, so they really just want to see your history.
Can I say this before we start recording? Because this is me thinking out loud, and I want you to push back on this. Okay. I do think it's important in the marketing aspect. That literally pushed me. I do think it's important from the marketing aspect, but I think it's more of a status verification rather than
a quality check.
Yeah.
No, actually...
and I do think that people hire people for status. But, like, think about this.
No, because it goes back into marketing. All right. So, a lot of times, you know that you'll hire a certain producer, even if you know they're not as good as the person in the room. Just because you know it's going to come with a certain amount of marketing advancements, just because they're involved. Like, for instance, I think you were saying this about Metro Boomin. Like, dude's got 200,000 followers, whatever. That's 200,000 more people to market to just because he's involved. And if he likes it even more, he might push it even more.
Oh, we did talk about that. Was that last episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was. We did talk about that. Like, it's worth paying the money for Metro Boomin.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially if he pushes it. For example, Kanye did a song with, recently, Easy, Kanye, and The Game.
Yeah.
And The Game didn't have to be on it at all.
Actually, the funny thing is, I think an old friend of mine produced it. Yeah, and he's actually...
Yeah, there's a couple producers on it. Yeah, there's a couple producers on it. Yeah. And so, with that song specifically, The Game didn't have to be on it at all. Kanye could have just released that. Yeah. But because he put The Game on it and probably paid out The Game, or at least gave up some percentage of royalties, there's a whole, I think The Game has like 12 million followers on Instagram alone, right?
Yeah.
Alone.
Yeah.
And so 12 million unique visitors potentially, maybe a lot less unique, but because they could have duplicate accounts that all follow the same thing, right? But whatever it is. But I think that's really valuable. I think it was worth paying whoever. But you know what's not worth it is, for example, The Game does this thing, and a lot of these major artists do this, where they charge artists a really small amount. Like, hey, I'll do an 8-bar verse for $1,000. That sounds like a really good steal for someone like The Game, but it's not really worth it unless the game puts it on his website and releases it under his name.
Yeah.
Because featuring the game doesn't push the algorithm on Spotify as much as you and the game.
Yep.
So, like, we could talk, like, anyway. Sorry, just thoughts.
Put it this way. You could also look at it as the reason that credits do matter is also perceived initial value with less need for negotiation or proof of work.
Back to the status thing. But again, my argument is always going to be the same with this. I've never had, well,
you're also
I don't
not the
wanna say
consumer.
never.
You're also not the consumer.
Yeah. And especially more so then, is this is my only argument, is that yes, I've had really good experiences, but statistically speaking, if an artist comes to you, I need to record, I need you to mix this song because you have a specific piece of analog gear.
Mm-hmm.
Red flag.
Yeah.
Probably not a good client to have.
Yeah.
Not a good client to have. I want to work with you specifically because you've worked with this artist in the past. To me, that's another red flag. That's really
Actually,
good.
I've had really good experiences with that.
I think that
I've had really
no, you
good
can, and
experiences,
I'm not going to say that's going to be like the reason, but versus DK, you've worked with other people that oh no, hold on, that's the same.
Because at that point, it doesn't even work as a status thing; it works as a trust thing. And at the end of the day, we're trying to build trust before we give anybody money, right? I'm not going to give money to somebody I don't trust. So, them having worked with somebody is me saying, "Look, I'm trusting you on this, but your end result will tell me everything I need to know to rehire you. Your status, your accolades, your past can get you in the room, but it will not keep you in the room."
That's true.
And I think that's the biggest misconception about credits. Because have you ever met somebody that has one credit and one credit only?
That's also potentially a red flag. Not really, but
like
for a long period of time.
Because you
like
know me,
forever.
you know that I've been around a lot of people and that I've put people in different rooms all the time. It's not even something that's like an everyday thing. It's just that I've done it long enough to where I don't even want to be in the room anymore sometimes. You know, so I'll put people in the room. But the funny thing is, not every call from every big name is a golden call.
Rory Kleins from YouTube says, "It's so nice to see the faces of the voices I listen to every day. Learn so much, never change. Wish you both well." Oh, thanks, Rory. Appreciate it.
I'm ugly, right?
What the
I'm just saying, like, yo, this is the mug you've been listening to.
Rory says, "On a side note, my favorite episodes are where you bring an artist on that you mastered and dissect what you did. So the mixed breakdowns. Oh, that's interesting. Actually, we need to do more. I privatized all of the previous mixed breakdowns. So actually, those episodes, I don't think they're online anymore. So I need to bring them back up, and we need to do more. I think we will do more because now Lou and I, we're working on a little side hustle, a little label project where we have artists to promote as well. So artists that we both work on and then we also promote. So I think that's actually a really great idea.
Actually,
we have a reason to do it now.
Yeah. We have the creators of the content for us to do it with.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Noah Avery says, "Hey guys, I have a question about releasing new music. I have a 3-song EP that I'm ready to release. I've already released one of the songs as a single. Is it worth it releasing 3 as an EP, or should I just spread them out as singles? I know that it doesn't really matter because I'm not a big artist or anything, but I'm wondering your take on what is the best strategy is."
Actually, I'm a big believer in singles, and then once you have some kind of machine behind it or a plan behind it, release an album as your overall artist concept. But singles is kind of where it's at right now, because I'll be honest, I think the last album I listened to full through, and DK walked in on me doing this like a weirdo, was Adele. And I think before that, it was like a half a year before that, before I listened to anybody's album full through with intention. It was mainly singles. Like, I actually ended up working with Ari Lennox before I knew who Ari Lennox was, and I realized that I saved one song from 3 different projects. So as far as an album or EP goes, I'm not sitting through the whole thing 9 times out of 10. I'm usually going through Spotify radio playlists and all that kind of stuff, like what is it? Fucking With Me by Tank Radio. Wolfpack LAX radio. And they're going to play one song at a time. They're not going to play a full EP. So I'm a big believer in just release it as singles. And then once you actually have a full concept together and a budget for marketing, for push, for visuals and everything, then release the album or the EP. But outside of that, I haven't really seen much benefit in releasing a whole project without that at least in play.
Yeah. Couple thoughts from my end. First off, I'll be direct. I think EPs are a waste of time. You do singles or a full-length album, nothing in between. I think that's just how it goes. I don't think EPs are valuable. And the algorithm thinks the same. So that's the first thing.
I like that add-on. And the algorithm thinks the same.
Yeah, and so you either do singles or do a full-length album, and there's no in between there. And coming back, and the reason why you may not want to drop an album and verse, instead do singles, is because of what you're able to do. I do like to tag on what Lou said. If you're able to release an album and also release music videos for many of the songs and be able to hype it up before the album comes out. Most people do this. 99.9% of all independent artists do this. They schedule out. Well, first off, they don't usually schedule out. They don't think about it. They just mindlessly release music, which is the worst thing that you can do. Worst thing you can do. The second, the thing that's slightly better, but also the worst thing to do, is to backdate the music to drop, let's say, a few months down the road, because you're going to promote the thing, and then you don't really promote the thing. You just wait till the deadline happens. That's like not really better than the first thing. That's the same as mindlessly dropping music immediately.
You know what I do like? Pre-saves.
Yeah, I think pre-saves is a really great gateway, or
for email capture.
How do you say, like, vehicle to get? Yeah, I think that's a really good excuse to get people to like try to like hype it up before.
Yeah.
Like it's a good call to action, I think. It's like people know what it means to pre-save a song. And
versus like skip my story.
Yeah, so I think it's a really great call to action in their pages. You know who does a really good job with this on social media specifically? This is a very specific example that I've paid attention to recently. Have you heard of the violinist dancer Lindsey Stirling?
No.
Okay, Lindsey Stirling is a violin player who's famous and went viral like a decade ago for dancing, playing the violin over EDM music, like Skrillex, and also dancing at the same time. So she's a violin player dancer. She's not a singer. Anyway, she's dubstep girl. Yeah, bro, dubstep girl. Okay, sweet. So you know Lindsey Stirling. Lindsey Stirling is still making music, and I think this is really important. Her sound recently, because I've been paying attention to sounds on Instagram, and I've been saving them, and it goes like which ones go viral and which ones are trending, and whenever I use a trending sound versus. So if you go on my Instagram, you'll find like I do a bunch of. We need to be recording this, but I'm going to finish this stop before we start recording. I know. I really actually no. We're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about this. Should I hit the record button
first? Just record.
No. Because
I'm looking up dubstep girl.
Anyway.
Write it down.
No. Because I'm just gonna repeat myself. It's all right. I'm gonna say it real quick. She's doing something really great. When she releases a song, she makes a TikTok or an Instagram reel every single day using the same sound. So when she came out with her Christmas stuff, she released a video or two videos every single day with the same sound and pushed it. Most people, most independent artists, when I see that they're getting ready to drop a song, they're like, all right, I have one, maybe 2 posts during the 3 months, maybe 4 posts, maybe lucky 5 posts in the last 2 months while we were preparing for this release. No, you should be relentlessly promoting that shit, like every single day, every hour of the week, and really hyping it up. And I think people like downplay that bit. And it's really sad when I, the engineer and producer that is a podcast host, has more content than the artist does. That's really sad.
Yeah, actually, I find that to be true whenever I'm mixing somebody's song. I'm like, hey, is it okay if I make a post about this or anything? They're like, yeah. And then it's the only content.
Yeah, it's the only content they have. Anyway, so we're going to talk about
I just looked her up. Now I do recognize her.
Yeah,
okay, I remember this.
She goes to my church.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I haven't seen her yet, though, because she's been on tour. Anyway, funny. We're going to start recording and start
She doesn't go to church. She goes to tour.
All right, we're going to start. Hello, and welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. I am your host, DK, and with me, as always, is... Did we already use Jiffy Lube? Noah keeps saying Jiffy Lube.
Yeah, I keep saying Noah putting Jiffy Lube, and it just made me laugh earlier, so let's go with that.
I think we already used that on a previous episode, but that's such a good nickname.
All right, but you gotta say it with the Lou emphasis.
Okay, one more time. Hello, and welcome back to the Mixing Music Podcast. I'm your host, DK, and with me, as always, is Jiffy Lube. Jiffy Lube.
Did you ever watch South Park? No. Yeah, okay, well, basically, there's an episode where Jesus gets his own episode, like
I
on
have
TV.
seen that one.
Yeah, I think I showed you the video
I
where
only
he's like,
watched South Park, but
Jesus Christ.
I haven't seen that one. We're live on Twitch and on YouTube right now. Hello, Dallas Crane. And he says, hi, DK and Jiffy.
I'll take it.
But we're live right now on Twitch and on YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast episode, come find us live. You can find the link to our Twitch channel if you go to mixingmusicpodcast.com and click on Watch Us Live. We are live every Monday afternoon at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We stay on live for a couple hours. Come join us. Follow, subscribe, blah, 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 whatever. All right. So we have a really good episode today, and I have a lot to talk about, and Lou has a lot of insight as well. And the caffeine is starting to kick in, so you can tell that I'm speaking a little bit faster than I usually do. So
I'm actually opposite today. I'm caffeineless.
I actually haven't had caffeine. I actually did like a caffeine fast for almost a week, so this is the first time in a little bit that I've had caffeine. Anyway.
I think I need to do that this week because last week I think I drank an average of two double shot lattes a day.
And I've only had, I drank it all actually. I've had one 40 milligram caffeine worth of like a Pepsi can. So I have a Pepsi, so it's only 40 milligrams. Technically 39 milligrams of caffeine. That's all I've had today, and that's usually more than enough for me. Anyway, this podcast episode we're not really going to talk specifically about this question. I want to talk about some of my answers and the benefits about this. We're going to get on a lot of talent tangents, but I think that there's a lot of bits and pieces that everybody's going to be able to partake. As other hosts on a different podcast says, we're going to provide a buffet of information, and you can come to the table and pick and choose what you want to take and apply to yourself.
That sounds delicious.
Because it is. Here's a buffet of information. I want to shout out my boy here who DM'd me on Instagram, Michael Choi, ya.boy, BOI _Choi. He says in a couple different texts, hey, DK, I was curious if I could pick your brain about getting more recording work. How do I look around for recording work? Should I look to other studios? I'm having trouble finding consistent work if at the studio I'm working at may not be doing okay. I appreciate you taking the time to answer my question. Then I asked some more questions, and then he said again, hey, thanks, man. I was curious how to get more recording sessions in my position. I'm an assistant engineer at blank recording studios, anonymous. I'm going to keep it anonymous there. Recording studios, looking to eventually mix for clients, but it's hard to find my own clients without word-of-mouth situations. And I asked specifically for tracking or mixing, which is different. And then I video called him, and we had a good, nice, long, hour-long conversation. So shout out to Michael Choi. It wasn't an hour long. It was like 20, 30 minutes. But I gave him some homework. I'm hoping that he's supposed to reply to me and send me a text of 5 different ideas that he took away from our conversation. But anyway, let's find out if he actually does that. No pressure, Michael Choi. Although this episode is going to come out like 3 weeks after your homework was due, so
you're like way, way behind, Michael.
There you go. Anyway, so I wanted to expand on that, on different value points of an engineer, and how do you get more clients through word of mouth, and the various different aspects. And we've touched on this multiple times, but there's some things that I thought about out loud during my conversation with him. And I specifically want to talk a little bit about my own personal success, which is wildly different than Lou's success, which is wildly different than, for example, someone like Manny or TZO or some other up-and-coming engineer versus some cats in Nashville. Like very wildly broad areas of success here. So we were talking about how to get more clients as a mixer or as a tracking engineer. And it's funny, he says he works about 20 to 24 hours relatively consistently at the studio as an assistant. So he's not necessarily running the board, but he's setting it up. He's doing assistant work, whatever that means. And
that's typically room prep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Helping
the engineers kind of patch things in, run the console.
Usually, if you're lucky, you're in the room. If not, you're outside the room.
Yeah. So we were talking about that, and I had a few thoughts. And this is where I want to start the conversation. At some point during our conversation, he said to me, I need to figure out how to reach out to more people. I'm going to repeat that because a lot of people think about this. A lot of people say this, and I'm sure that both of us have thought this before. How do I reach out to more people? And then immediately after that, after some questions, I said to him, I think it's time to change that mindset. Because this is one of the secrets here, is not how do you get to reach out to more people. It's rather, how do you get people to reach out to me? How do I open up my resources and create a pathway that people can see that they can reach out to me? And this is really interesting. So today's topic is not so much the traditional business industry route, which is usually you get mentored by becoming a runner or an assistant and assisting under someone. They teach you all their tips and tricks and you get better, and then they give you some clients over time and it kind of trickles over and you kind of start your own brand. That's a traditional way, like kind of this squire to a knight kind of mentorship program. But I myself, which is a little bit similar but different from you, because I think you're in between, right? Where I've never interned for anybody. I've never assisted for anybody. And I have a couple cool credits, like a few cool credits, but I'm also not, people don't hire me because of huge credits that I have.
I like to live on the edge.
You know, but somehow I have been able to make a living in a career and do well, relatively well, without any of these things that the traditional route values so much. Values things like credits and placements and working under another engineer that has a lot of clout or a lot of respect in the community. How have I been able to do that without? And I think the point that I'm trying to make here is this thought. How do I get people to come to me? So one of the things, and I'm going to use me as an example. I don't think that I'm the best example, and I guarantee there are many people that I can even name that are doing far better than I am. But I do think that I'm above the average here. What are some ways that you can get people to come to you? I think, first of all, you need to have some sort of a call to action. Like, for example, if you're on Instagram, you need to somehow let people know that they can reach out to you to book you. Like, how do I know that you're even a mix engineer? You know what I'm saying? Like, let alone that you're accepting clients, let alone that you're looking for clients. And like, even if you think that you're posting stuff, making content, you're probably not. Like, that's actually useful information of getting people to reach out to you. Now, I'm not saying you need to barrage people by saying, hey, reach out to me, and promotion, in your face promotion. I don't think that's it at all. I think it's more about opening the door rather than pushing people through. Like, I think a lot of people, like some people tend to try to push people through the sales door. And you've done a lot of sales. You know that shit doesn't work.
Yeah. When I was training sales teams, it's a lot of like, don't be annoying. Like, if you're annoying, they're not going to buy from you. They're going to go find another salesperson. They're here to check in and check out. Yes. But you don't have to go so hard on it. They'll just find another salesperson who won't bother them. Or
in worst case, a different company.
No, absolutely. But imagine that you are part of the company. You're in the music industry. If you don't have a boss, guess what? That means they will go to another company. So at the end of the day, if you're pushy and annoying and all that, they just won't work with you in the future. It's that simple.
Yeah. So I think that there's a lot of relationship to sales and what I'm talking about right now, which I guarantee that most of your clients, when you were working your sales job years ago, right, is oftentimes all you told the client was, yes, we have that in stock and available, and that's all they needed to know before they put money in.
Yeah, don't ask closed-end questions unless you're ready to close the deal.
Right? So I think that that's something. So people just need to open their doors and make it obvious that, hey, I'm available. And now I do think that there's some PR issues here. If you just like not greedy, but if you're just constantly pushing, hey, I'm available, then people will start to think, yo, is this dude never busy? Like, was there a reason why nobody's booking him? That can become a red flag. So you want to be careful, but at the same time, like, you want to be open to it, right? Open to the idea, like just showcasing people, hey, I might be available. So call to actions are incredibly important. So anyway, going back to this idea of how do we get people to find me? So another thing that's incredibly important, let's talk about another pillar of importance for traditional engineers is credits. And we had a really great off podcast conversation about this, about where credits stand and why credits and customer base and quality of customer is incredibly important, but also why it might not be. And I think that it is important. I think this is a yin and yang thing. But I think one of the benefits that I have not built a brand based on my clientele is the fact that when people come to me, they come to me for me. They come to me because I'm DK. They didn't come to me because I have a specific piece of equipment or I've worked with someone specific, which can be a red flag. I know you've experienced saying like, that you've had actually good experience with people coming to you because you worked with other people. And I think that that's definitely a case. What about the equipment thing? I think lesser so with the equipment thing. People that come to you specifically because you have a specific piece of equipment is
lesser so unless it's very specific pieces.
Okay.
Yeah, if it's somebody that's looking for you because you have a console, they automatically assume that it's going to sound like gold. So whatever you do with that console, you'll be like, oh man. That's the sad part, though, because there's many engineers who have access to a console who just can't get a great mix anyways. And then the client leaves with whatever they got. But the funny thing is, it's not about, at the end of the day, what the sound of the mix was. It's the confidence that the client left with. And at the end of the day, that's what we're here to do. We're not here to make people feel insecure. You've said it yourself.
Yeah.
So if having a console makes them feel much more secure in your end result, then, it's not feasible. It's not fiscally responsible in any way, shape, or form. But if that's what works for your business, I applaud you.
Yeah, and go back to this. So building a brand. How do you build more? So we're talking about the non-traditional way of building your brand, because it's not feasible for anybody listening right now, for everybody listening right now, to find someone to mentor them, to be able to work and assist under a big studio or to train under a big studio. It's not feasible for everybody.
At least not for an adult.
Yeah, especially for an adult.
Yeah, if you're 16 and you're listening to this and you go to high school and you don't pay bills, go intern. Go get a mentor. Go do something where they can put you on a fast track before you have to pay your own bills and build a family, because you will have less opportunities. I'm not saying that it makes it impossible. I'm just saying that you have something that most people don't have in their adulthood, which is free time. And no bills.
I can argue and say that adults have maybe not as much, but definitely have a lot of free time as well.
For things that you're very focused on and feel passionately about, yes. But when I was a kid, you know what I did with my free time? Go to Taco Bell and play video games. I'm just saying, I could have been on.
I don't know how much that's. I don't know. I did that the other day.
You know what? Yeah, I still do it, but I do it consciously now versus like, what do you want to do today? I don't know. I want to play Monster Hunter.
So anyway, going back to the topic here, the good thing about what I'm talking about right now, the non-traditional, more modern way of thinking about it versus the traditional way of thinking about it, is that you could do both side by side.
Yeah.
You can be working at a major studio or engineering or assisting or something, just like Michael Choi was talking about, and be building your personal brand at the same time. So building your personal brand is important. And in the sense that Gary Vee said that if you build up your personal brand, you will never, ever have to share a resume ever again, because your personal brand is your resume. And
Absolutely.
I think there's a lot of truth to that. So on that note, again, sorry, I'm kind of like jumbling up my thoughts here. But I do think that it's valuable to create content and to open up the door and allow people to walk through the door on their own. I don't think you have to push things and say, because what I am saying when I say, hey, come join our Discord, you can go to mixingmusicpodcast.com and join our Discord, is a great example of inviting people and opening the door, knowing that Discord exists. All I'm doing is allowing people to know that Discord exists. I'm not saying join the Discord or else I'm not going to do this podcast anymore, or, like forcing people to join it. No, I'm not going to talk to you or respond to your DMs unless you're in my Discord. But I am saying, hey, I have this opportunity. And it's a little bit different than self-promotion in the sense that you are giving them value, right? Like if you follow me on TikTok or if you follow me on Twitch, you're going to get value out of this. It's going to be good for you. You want this. You just didn't know that it existed.
Yeah,
so
that's
like,
true.
If you're a mixer and you offer that, you may be a great mixer, or that part doesn't even matter. Probably you're a good mixer, a good enough mixer. But why would anybody hire you if they don't even know that you're offering that? Yes, I mix. So like one simple thing, practical thing that I used to do is whenever I post a picture, whether it's my family or anything like that on my Instagram, that I'd put a carousel. And so the next second image would be a simple image that says, go to dkmixes.com and ask me for a quote. Or go to Mixing Music Podcast, look up Mixing Music Podcast on Spotify and listen to the podcast. Some sort of call to action, because it's really low effort. And you're just letting people discover you. It's not something, you're not forcing people and you're not cramming it down their throat, but you're just allowing people to dig deeper into you when they stalk you, because they eventually will. And then whenever I post content like Reels and stuff, I'm giving them a reason to stalk me and to look into me and figure out what my projects are. At the very least, that's the bottom line, minimal amount thing that you should do is open the door.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to, let's go into the client topic, because we had a really good conversation about that. And I kind of fell off and talked about something else for a moment. But the client topic, this is, and I think that we talked about this in relationship with also assistant engineers. So there's something, this is not always the case, but specifically for assistant engineers or someone that assisted for another larger engineer, a much more renowned engineer, the number one complaint, and some engineers are really sensitive about this, like they don't want you to bring it up, is once you assist for someone, you may have the credits, you might have the clientele, you may have the money, but they will always be known as that person's assistant.
Yeah.
Dave Pensado's assistant, Manny Marroquin's assistant, this person's assistant. And that's actually great, because at the end of the day, you're going to have better clientele, you're going to have more money, you're going to have more work because you were their assistant, but they're coming to you with different expectations. They're not coming to you because you are you. They're coming to you because you are this person's assistant.
Yeah.
And so the expectations are different. Why can't you, it might be like, whoa, this sounds different than when you mixed it with this person, when I mix it with that,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that that's going to be the case, but there is something different about that, something that a lot of engineers find excruciatingly annoying.
I feel like that's any industry, because you will always be seen as the apprentice and never the master.
And it takes years to get out of that.
Yeah.
And everybody always does, but I think one of the great things about doing it the way where you're building your own brand, if you're alongside or at least by itself, is that will never be an issue. Again, it comes down to, I think the most beautiful thing with my brand is that people hire me because I'm DK. Truly, there's no other reason. Why would you hire me unless you knew who I was?
Yeah.
And so there's this like really cool, but anyway,
I feel like that's
there's
also
different ways to do that.
I also feel like that's also a separation of type of client.
Exactly. And then we were talking, so I do think though, is the clientele, the quality of clientele and your clientele history is extremely important.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that you should rely heavily on that.
Well, that's
I don't
what
think
I'm
it's
saying.
an excuse.
Yeah, but that's why I say there's a difference between a client and a customer all the time. It's two completely different things, and people always
talk
think,
about this. Yeah.
Yeah, people always think it's the same exact thing, but it's not. See, my client, if let's put this back into a sales game kind of thing, right? You're in a company, you've got 8 salespeople, and that client has been going to the store all the time to see you. That is your client. That is not your customer. A customer is somebody who walks through the door and says, I want somebody who knows about this, right? So a customer may say, I want Manny Marroquin's assistant because I can't afford Manny Marroquin, so I'm going to go for the knockoff because I can afford that. But they are not your client. They are your customer. They came here for a specific product. They didn't care about who they came to see. Now, a client is there because of the salesperson, because you can buy that product on Amazon. You can buy it at Guitar Center. You can buy it at Sam Ash. It really doesn't give one fuck about who they get it from, but they chose to get it from you.
This is actually a
That's
really good
the
insight.
difference. That's why I keep saying credits matter. They do. Equipment matters. They do, because they will help you open the door. But it will not keep you in that door. It will help attract the client to your location, to your business, to your whatever. But it is not on the credits or on your equipment responsibility to keep the client there. Your client will be your client as long as you do right by your client. Give them the end result they're after. But most people are looking for more customers when they should be looking for more clients.
That's actually, I really love that insight. Okay, so let me break it down again. A customer is someone who just needs the product and doesn't care who does it.
Exactly.
A client is someone, like for example, I am my barber's client.
Exactly, because you're not going to another barber. You don't trust another barber. You trust your barber.
And my clientele is clientele of clients. I don't really have customers. I have clients.
Exactly.
This is actually, wow. I think this is super insightful, and I think that we could go on into this. I do think credits is great for customers, bringing in
not
customers,
for clients.
But not for clients. Okay, this is actually a
You
really
see
great
why I
way
always
of
defend
differentiating.
it?
This is a really great way of differentiating. Okay, we're thinking out loud. We're kind of getting things right. Okay, so now we're going to go deeper into this. We talked a little bit about equipment. So what are the ways that you find clients? Okay, now that we've differentiated between
Trust.
that. Okay, so we know, yes, we've talked about this before. Say that again.
Trust.
It's trust. So they need to trust you. Just like with my barber, there's probably another barber that charges less, that does even a better job for less amount of money with potentially better shears or whatever the heck he's using. I don't know what they're called. I'm not a barber. I know it's not shears, right? The clippers. But
I like how you were about to say equipment too, though.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, the reason why I go to my barber is because I trust him, and I think it's the same way with mixers, specifically with mixers. I think recording is more of a customer-based thing rather than a client-based thing. I think there's some clients in recording, but I think it's mostly customers, especially compared to mixing, which is almost all clientele rather than customer-tell. A list of customers, But going into that, how do you practically build trust scalably to the point where people come to you rather than you reaching out to them? Because I've never been able to. It's very difficult. It's much more difficult to go to someone and offer them value in order to build trust rather than they found trust somewhere else. Like, for example, listening to the podcast. Like, I think it's silly that there's people right now, well, to a certain degree, there's a reason behind this, but if we're subjectively speaking, I think it's silly that people are listening to the podcast and listening to us rant. And yes, we have good advice, but who are we to listen to?
Do we?
Like, who are we? Like, why do people listen? It's because we've given you value. And there are people out there right now that are listening right now that have trusted us enough to give us money to do something on their behalf. If we didn't make this podcast, if we didn't have YouTube channels, if we didn't make any content, we are nobodies. And I'm not saying, well, not in a bad way, but like, why would anybody come to us? How would anybody discover us? How would anybody trust us if we didn't make content?
So that's where the traditional route does make sense. Because at the end of the day, we were talking about how to grow our clientele and customer base, right? We're trying to reach out to more customers in the hopes of more clients. The traditional route actually does offer something because of those credits, which is you get in the room with certain people, and those people will learn to trust you if you do a good job. We talked about how to build trust. For me, that's always been consistency, honesty, and end result. That's usually the main three things that people are looking for. They're looking for you to meet your deadline. They're looking for you to do a good job and have minimal amount of revisions if possible. And that when you agree to do something, you actually do it. Whether that's, oh, you told me you were going to tune the vocals. Yeah, but all you did was slap autotune on it. I didn't want autotune. I just wanted a few notes corrected. Building trust over time in the traditional sense will put you in the room with people who actually have more of a say in certain projects, in certain rooms with certain people, certain executives. And because of that, you can grow significantly faster and find a clientele base that actually has more influence. Now, do you want to spend a year scrubbing my toilets doing that? No, I don't think so. I don't even want to do that. And this is where I will just quickly say, me as an intern, I lasted the longest 3 months. You know, it's funny. I just made a client out of the people that I used to intern for. And they're a label.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. You went and offered so much value even as an intern that the people
years
that you were
later,
interning under became clients years later.
Yeah.
It developed into a client relationship.
So
because of how much value you gave them, they trusted you.
Not only that, but in part of the conversation, because I know they'll eventually hear this, I let them know about the podcast and all that. And the funny thing is they told me that they already knew about it. They already knew about the podcast. They saw the studio. They saw all the updates, and they were actually impressed with the growth over time, that even though we weren't in communication for a little bit, they actually were, like you said, stalking in a sense, but in an actual professional manner, in which once I actually had a product to offer and I offered it in a way that made sense for me to build a clientele, not a customer, but a clientele, they were interested in that product. The price point was right. The offerings were right, and the trust was built.
So I think it goes back to this then. It goes back to this. It always comes back to this, especially if you do the non-traditional. We'll call it like the new way, the new marketing, right? If you do new marketing, you have to build content, whatever that means to you. I recommend you read the book. If you're listening right now and you like to read, even if you don't like to read, I recommend reading, even if you listen to the audiobook, the first book by Gary Vee, Crush It by Gary Vee. It goes into he talks a lot about why content creation and content marketing is valuable. It's not so much practical way. There's some practicality in it, like some practical things that you could do. It's kind of out of date because it's kind of like almost pre-YouTube days or early YouTube days, but it's still really good information and kind of puts things into perspective of why it's so important. Okay, but I do think you have to make content. In order for people to know that you exist, that you are accepting clients, you have to make content.
Even if it's just an Instagram post.
And I think that there's two, in my mind, I specialize in educational content, which I think is very great. There's, depending on what you're trying to do and how you're, because there's an end goal, right? So, okay, let me go back to the example that I gave Michael Choi when we were on the video call. 20 minutes before I called Michael Choi, I had a friend call me and said, DK, I need advice getting people into a show. I'm hosting an event, a show, and I want some live bands there. I need some advice here. This is the secret. This is the marketing mind of DK here. My band, Motion Coaster, that I had back in the day and that we don't really play anything anymore. Everybody's kind of adulted. But we sold out this local venue that was kind of notorious, and it was very difficult to sell out because it was a small music town. We sold it out 6 out of 7 times. Most people are very lucky to sell it out once. And here's the secret to why we sold it out, especially as a young band with no followers, with no following, because we sold it out from our first show. The only one we didn't sell out was like our 4th one in because I just didn't follow through with a lot of the marketing, a lot of the planning. But here's the secret. And why, if people want to come to my show, and this is why, okay, I want you to think about how this relates to educational content and the reason why I put out educational content. If I want people to come to my show, and if I invite you, you're just a friend, even if you're working in the music industry, I'm like, come to my show. Are you giving emotional money or taking emotional money to come to my show?
I'm giving emotional money.
Yeah, like you're like, oh, I'm going because he's my friend. Not because you want to go, but because he's my friend. If you go at all.
I've literally had that conversation in the past where they're like, why are we going to this? I'm like, just support.
Exactly. So you're giving. In order to go, you're giving emotional energy. Okay, this is really interesting. Now, what if I told you, it's like, oh, yeah, sure, I'm playing. But more importantly, there's going to be 400 people there, and it's sponsored by a hot dog company, and you'll get free hot dogs there. Also, you're going to get a bunch of T-shirts because there's free swagger there. The room's going to be full because it's a dance party.
Yeah.
Now I'm selling the social aspect.
Yeah.
It's like, now if it's a social thing, oh, there's going to be lots of people there. Oh, there's going to be free food there. One of my concerts, we gave out otai, which is like Polynesian smoothies. That's like a really, really simple way of explaining it. But like it's fruit smoothies, Polynesian fruit smoothies, otai, and we're giving them out. And another show, we gave out free hot chocolate outside the venue as well. And they were always packed. I mean, like from the first one, it was going to be packed. And every time we made a poster, it was dance party at the Velour or at the venue with Motion Coaster.
You know, I don't know about giving hot chocolate after because I feel like I'd feel bloated and all dairy.
It was outside when people were coming in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because it was in the middle of winter because it's Utah as well, so it's cold.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So, I mean, the point is, I sold the social aspect. And we sold out the venue every single time. Almost every single time, except for one time.
You know, if there's one thing that does get people through, and I think we've seen this be true about even our events at the studio when COVID was less of an issue. Now that it's an issue again. But
we're looking at
free stuff really brings people around, even if it's hot chocolate, apparently. Yeah,
it really does. And it's more about this. In that specific scenario, it was about the social aspect. Okay, so going back to the mixing engineer thing. How do I get people to trust me and come to my resources and partake in my content? Because once they're in the venue and then we play the band, we've won them over. They love our music. We did offer a really great dance party, and then they became fans. But they didn't come because they knew us. They came because of the party. So it opened the door to a lot more potential fans as well, rather than just a group of our friends. We don't need our friends to be fans. We need people that have never heard us to come. And because it was a dance party, a bunch of people that had never heard us before came. And of course, we over-delivered with our performance. Okay, so coming back to this, how do we do this? Okay, why do I make educational content? It's because of the same sort of thing. I'm teaching you how to make a compressor. You don't, at the early stages, when you're first finding interest, you're not coming to me and watching my YouTube video because I'm DK. You initially come to me because you want to know more about this compressor.
Yes.
And then you find out, oh, DK knows what he's talking about. Lou knows what he's talking about. And then you become even more devoted fans. And then eventually you're going to convert into a customer and then convert into a client. It's inevitable. And if you don't convert all the way to client, then at least you know what the path is. You know
Yeah.
what to do. So this is why they call it the funnel. There's different steps in how a customer kind of qualifies themselves and converts themselves into a deeper until the sale, right? So on that note, you could buy you could buy our stuff. No. But mixedmusicpodcast.com, check out all of our sponsors.
Just go to our affiliates.
Yeah, check out our sponsors list. If you purchase anything from our sponsors on mixedmusicpodcast.com, we get a little kickback. We're thankful.
If you're ever interested in even the microphones that we use, they sound amazing, don't they?
Yeah, these microphones, actually, if you talk to Lou, if you DM Lou on Instagram at Mastered by Lou, he may be able to hook you up with a great deal on these microphones.
Actually, I did just help out somebody. I'm blanking on his name right now because I don't want to forget Andrew Masters' name right now because I wanted to bring him up as an example.
Ooh,
but I looked into him a little more because of the reach out that we did. But
Andrew Masters is a YouTube content creator within the realm of studios and home studios.
Yeah,
and he's in Nashville.
Yeah, I just didn't want to forget his name, but we did. Well, I got reached out to on Instagram. Somebody hit me up. They're like, "Hey, are you still working with Lawton? Are you able to help me find a good deal?" I'm like, "Yeah," and it turns out we actually saved him a pretty good chunk of pennies.
Okay, so you're going back to the Loudon thing.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But we're done with that now. Yeah.
If you want a Loudon microphone, just hit up Lou. At Mastered by Lou.
Yeah, but on the Andrew Masters thing, because I wanted to use him as an example. We talked about perceived value, the content creation, and what it is that will actually open the door for customers to become clients the more they get to know us and build trust with us, right? What, if you could say it in one sentence, what is it that Andrew Masters does on YouTube?
Makes home studio production-based videos, high-quality videos.
Okay, that was so broad-stroked that could mean anything.
I don't know. What did you want me to say?
All right. He does a lot of studio tours. He talks about building his own studio, what goes into a quality room and quality recordings. But in a nutshell, in a sentence, most people know him for doing the walkthroughs of many underground but yet well-known Nashville studios and studios around his state lines, from my understanding. But the funny thing is, I went to his website because I got more interested in him. And I was like, he's a trusted resource at this point not because he knows everything, but rather he's around enough people of influence that I want to know more about his influence. And with that said, I stumbled upon his services page, and he's a drummer. So I thought,
he's a session drummer, yeah.
Let me look into his drumming prices, but I didn't find the drumming prices first. In fact, what I saw first was his mixing prices. We talked about credits being a factor or not. In this case, it's more social credits that he has than actual label credits, but his mixes cost $1,200 a mix. That's actually a lot higher than most people we know with actual credits or plaques. I know people who mix for IDK, who's killing it right now, and his mixes are cheaper.
Yeah.
But it's that social influence that gives a perceived value, like I said, that because he's built so much trust with his, fans, that those who see the value in him that high will believe that that's a fair rate. I'm not saying that it's not a fair rate or not. I'm saying that you've created a sense of value, so much so that, let's say his price was cheaper a year ago. Like you said, the only reason you should raise your price is when you get so much work, you can no longer do it for the same price. Is that where he's at? Has his outreach to his fans through these YouTube videos helped his business that much? It's free. He's not charging you to go to YouTube.
Absolutely.
It's free, a resource that is actually helping him build his business remotely. He doesn't have to stay in Nashville unless he wants to at this point.
Absolutely. And I think that this is what we're talking about is, as an artist, as an engineer, here's another example. If you're going to run an ad, for example, if I were to run ads, what do you think would be more effective for conversions, for finding clients and customers, right? If I ran an ad saying, hire me for my mixing mastering services, I'm available, or check out this free podcast.
Yeah.
What's going to be more effective?
Free.
The free podcast thing.
So smartbio.links, what I use on my Instagram, it lets you know how many times something's been clicked. You know how many times the request a quote's been clicked versus the podcast? We're talking about like triple digit differences.
Yeah. And I think that there's a point there. And yes, you'll have a smaller, every person that clicks on request a quote is probably much more likely to convert than every person that clicked on the free thing.
Yep.
But you're going to reach a lot more people. It's about reachability at that point. You reach as many people as you can, and you let them qualify themselves.
Like okay, so let's say that they request a quote and the conversion rate is 20% on 10 people versus conversion rate of 5% on 2,000 people.
Well, I can't do quick maths that fast.
Okay, I'm just saying, like, you're actually.
But I'd rather have the 2,000 people.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you created content, uploaded it to YouTube, and it stays there forever, but that content is actually constantly being viewed, and because of that, the level of trust that you build without having to do any active work to do it is helping you actually close more people, even if it's at a lower rate. You don't actually have to actively do anything right now. The funny thing about sending out 1 million quotes is that you actually have to actually have the conversation versus somebody saying, book now.
Yeah. And so, and this is a really great example. If you're listening right now, you're a prime example of my system working, our system working. And again, subjectively speaking, if I wasn't making this content, then I could argue that this is silly that you trust me in any sense or form. But at the same time, it makes complete sense of why you would have any sort of remote trust between me and Lou. Why would you trust Lou? Why would you trust me? Why have people even gone as far as to pay money for me? And you know, it's because of the trust factor. And I've gone through educational content. If you're an artist, I would actually recommend going the other route, not educational content, but entertainment content. Because, okay, here's another great example. If as an artist, right? I may have talked about this before. I repeat a lot of things because I think there's a lot of observations that I made. Anyway, I have a friend who has over 200,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he's a mechanical keyboard enthusiast, and he builds mechanical keyboards and mods them. And anyway, cool guy. You can check him out. Hippiotech is his name. Anyway, he started making music in the last few months, and this is really interesting. He has a non-music based platform. It's about mechanical keyboards. You can't get nerdier than that. Yet he has better numbers and better monthly listeners, better download rates, and more followers on his personal music page than most independent artists that I know.
I'm sorry, I'm smiling because not because of the influence differences, but when I think of a guy that's known for mechanical keyboards, I think of the clicking sound, and then I think of the music, and I'm like, what if part of the lyrics of the song was him typing the words and you can hear the little clicks being typed away behind his lyrics, and that's like put into the music? I would absolutely buy that song. I wouldn't even listen to it. Money out of my wallet immediately. Don't need to listen to it.
But anyway, he does a really great job. And why does that happen? It's because he built content and built value for people, and now he's like the Godfather. People think that they owe him favors, even though he actually would have made the videos regardless of whether people were watching or not.
Yeah.
You know, and because of that, he's converted a lot of his mechanical keyboard fans into music fans. And this is genius. And I love this idea. Like, if you're an artist and your art, your creation is a form of entertainment, which it is because it's music, then it's more important for you to be charismatic, and to be a fun personality and to be entertaining than anything else. You could be really educational.
Yeah.
But if you're educational, it's better that if you sell a product, you have to think about your product. What is your product? And if your product is entertainment, which it is in the case of an artist, I recommend making entertainment content. If your product is mixing or mastering as some sort of service, then maybe educational content. But here's another thing that we need to talk about as well. Depending on how you word this, the one dumb thing that I'm doing that I could have done a better job with, I'm doing okay with it because my audience speaks for itself. But if I made this truly a high-level mixing and mastering podcast, that would have been the dumbest thing to do.
Because that's an extremely niche market.
Yeah, it's a super niche market. More importantly, my clients are not other mix engineers.
No, they're not.
My clients.
Yeah.
So this is the reason why when you were deciding about going into mastering specifically, I thought that would have worked better for the Mixing Music podcast and converting from the podcast, because people that mixing engineers hire mastering engineers.
Yes.
So what would have been a better idea as a mixer for me was make a podcast or content around producing or songwriting or recording. And And granted, and I'm not doing this on purpose, like I'm talking about whatever the heck I want to talk about. But naturally, the podcast has developed into, the content has developed into more early to intermediate, some advanced stuff. But the audience, anyway, I'm kind of exposing myself here.
Actually, I'm going to give a shout out because of what you're saying, but you can continue. I'm going to look them up because I wanted to tell you this in person.
But I think that it's really interesting. So I could have done a better job. I could have done a much better job converting wise if I thought about my clients a little bit more, but I really just want to talk about mixing. Honestly, that's kind of why it started. And then it kind of barrel rolled or snowballed into this whole entire thing, which is funny. But anyway, I would recommend if you're an engineer, make educational content, or at the very least, make entertaining content. I think that educational content, though, thinking about who your client is much more important if you're in the realms of service.
Now, the funny thing is we talk about trust and we forget to include sphere of influence too. Because when you think about who our client is, you also forget that there's other professionals that they need to trust somebody to offset work to, or to even, in our case, for this one that I was going to bring up, book studio time with. The reason being is shout out to John Will. I found out this engineer is actually a listener of the podcast. He's not just any engineer either. He's actually Kevin Gates' personal engineer. So he's the one that did a bunch of the major records and everything. He actually called into the studio looking to book some time to do a listening session with some people. And he caught me off guard for a moment. He's like, "Is this Lou?" I was like, yeah. He was like, "Dude, I love the podcast. I listen to it, this and that, like you and DK, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Oh, shit. Okay, this is cool." Like, the funny thing is, like, we talk about all the things to do professionally and how to build trust, how to actually, like today's episode, focus on clients and not on customers necessarily. We're reaching out to customers, but we're looking to have our clients stay and reach out to us. But this is the perfect example of how, you know, somebody who normally is just listening to the podcast is looking to go somewhere where they can trust and they believe is going to be of quality that is adequate for their needs. And I'm happy to say we've seemingly convinced John that we are, and I'm really glad that we're going to have him tomorrow in the studio. So we'll have to visit him before his session starts, just say hi.
And I think going back to it, if we didn't make this content, if he didn't listen to the podcast, let alone
would
if
he
we
really
didn't
know
make
us?
Would he trust us?
Yeah.
Would he know us? That's
no
the thing.
Reason, like,
no reason. Why
the
would
reality is, like, we're not just looking to help out our clients, but even the content that we create now is helping other professionals in our industry, and that in turn is helping us out. It may not be as evident as when we get booked as a mix or something, but the reality is one of the things that you asked me on the year recap or 2021 look behind, what I forget what we called it.
Yeah.
But you asked me, like, what was the celebrations? My celebrations is when I see our clients are actually happy, they're satisfied, they love all the updates that we do, the upgrades that we actually keep them in mind. It's really a great thing to get the messages when they're like, "Yo, like, this last episode really helped me out a lot. You know, I've been battling this with my clients." That's not my client. That's another engineer in our industry that we seemingly improved the life of. And
that's amazing.
You know what? Those are the same people that when we were offering our discounted consultations, those are the first people to actually reach out to us and say, "You know what? I'd love a consultation. I'd love to learn a little bit one-on-one, a little more." They may not be mixing with us, but we've built enough value in their life to where, you know, they will monetize you in another way if you give them that option. Not saying that that's what you guys need to do or anything, but it's really nice to know that we've seemingly helped more than just our clients.
And so, and I'm going to leave, we've gone a little bit long, but I'm going to leave a thought with y'all. I'm going to give everybody listening right now some homework. And I'm give the same homework to Michael Choi. I'm going to force everybody listening right now to do the same amount of homework.
Do I have to do it?
I will make one, what do you call a precursor to this, though, is Gary Vee talks a lot about this in his book, is that it's very important to do what is in your DNA. For example, if you are very shy about showing your face, then maybe YouTube influencer or TikTok influencer is not the route for you. You know, maybe it's writing a book or working on a podcast. Maybe you are all about the entertainment thing, or you are willing to show your face. Then maybe YouTube is for you. Maybe TikTok is for you. Maybe Instagram is for you. Maybe Twitter is for you if you're not someone that wants to show your face. Because Twitter is a great place to monetize as well. That's a whole nother category, which I'm trying to improve in. Maybe you write blogs. I don't know. But the point is, I want everybody right now that's listening, I challenge you. I give you homework, and you need to write this down, whether digitally on your phone, on a computer, or you write it down with pen and paper. I need you to think of 5 ways that you'd be willing to make content. 5 ways. And then on top of that, what are you going to do? So for example, if one of your ideas was, I'm going to post on Instagram, then I want you to, underneath that, talk about how often you're going to do it and what you're going to do. I'm going to post an educational content with a call to action every day or at least 3 times a week. I need you to do this. 5 ideas and 1 or 2 ways on how to execute each idea. Okay? This is homework, and I want you to get back to us and put right down on come join our Discord and talk to us on the Discord of what you're trying to do and what you're trying to get better at. And then maybe even find one of the things that I did in the past was have like a brain group, or like, what is it? A thought group? Brainstorming group where I'd meet with 2 or 3 other engineers that did similar content, and we're kind of motivating each other to do it. Like maybe you find some people like that, or a group of people like that on the Discord. You know, maybe I host it for the first few times and get people to share, exchange how they want to make content and find new clients. But I do think in the new age of marketing, you have to make content. It's inevitable, and that is the only way. You cannot be shy. You cannot be shy. You have to put yourself out there. You have to be brave. I challenge you all to think of 5 ways to do it and get started. Start executing on making some content. And I think that kind of wraps up this episode.
I think so.
This is a very, I want to emphasize how important this episode is. If you've ever wondered the secret to me personally and Lou's success, this is it. This is the secret episode. And I really hope that you take a lot from this, and I really hope that you take this to heart. It sucks to make content. It's a lot of work, and everybody has mental issues and reasons why they might want to get in front of a camera and do what, make content or put themselves out there. It's scary.
How long did I not want to do it when we first met?
Yeah, there you go. It took you a minute to come around, but now you're starting to do a lot more.
I think in the last year I started singing in front of clients.
There you go. So be brave, push forward, find new clients, happy mixing, my friends, and stay saucy.
Yeah.
I should have done more call to actions for us, like follow us on Instagram or something like that. Hold on. Did that not record? I swear on my life. I swear. Okay, it did record. Podcast episodes are like this. We kind of think of the topic on this.
Just like you, a lot of time.
Hold on. Wait a second. My band, Motion Coaster. That definitely worked. Okay, it did definitely worked. Okay, sweet. Whew, I had a feeling that just didn't go through. During the stream, turn the AC back on. It's getting hot in this room, or I'm just getting excited. Noah says, Lou, I work with a pretty well-known jazz saxophonist that is probably looking to do another West Coast to East Coast tour soon. Does Loughton make any microphones that you think would work well for live recording a jazz trio inside of venues? Tenor sax, upright bass, and drums.
Yes. 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 This one.
The Loughton Audio LS208.
Honestly, this mic has actually been a very surprising tool, not just in the studio, but as far as the podcast goes. I'm sure you can tell me and DK use it, but the funny thing is the isolation level of this thing is amazing. Like, you can't really hear what I'm doing when I turn it around, and that's actually what I really like.
Did you actually physically turn it around?
Yeah, I did. Check it out. Yeah, see? Testing 1, 2. Yeah, like, look at the level of my voice right now, and then look at my level of voice right now. Like, the rejection is insane on this thing. But not only that, but you can use it on a snare, you can use it on a kick drum. I've heard tons of recordings that I've done with it where I've like listened back to it compared to like let's say a kick mic, a 57, a 421, because I used to actually own 7 421s. I used to love that microphone a lot. Yeah, that was too many 421s. But this mic's rejection actually suits it really well for live. It's a condenser, and it can actually handle a lot of SPO. So much so that it actually feels like a tank too. So if you're going to use it for like vocals live, if you're going to use it for saxophone, if you're going to use it for drums, the isolation is good enough to not have to deal with feedback issues like most other mics, like the Neumann ones. I know Neumann mic is popular for live sound. vocals, but the reality is it's a nightmare when it comes to feedback. I hate that mic with a passion.
Also we got low key, we got some deep ties in with Loudon Audio, so we are a little bit biased here. But
oh no, fuck the bias. Like 57 or 58 or Beta 58 all day for most live sound. But this mic was surprisingly good during my concert season last year.
I tried to trigger. The only reason why I said that is to try to trigger a sound, and I pressed it a long time ago, and it's not working. Dang it, I'm really bummed.
What if it triggers like 1,000 times over?
No, that's what usually it takes a second to warm up. Oh, there it is. See, I didn't even touch it that time. I was gonna say we're in deep with Loudon Audio.
I like this. I want this.
But it just takes a second to trigger. Now that I've triggered it, it'll be really fast. Like, that's my son's favorite one. Wow. Or if you get pissed off, like for example, let's talk about Steven Slate.
Okay, how the hell are you making these? Because I want to make them now.
No, I'm teasing. But yeah. So or like Lou on clients versus customers.
Oh yes, I like that.
That's a good one, huh?
I want to do that when I start like getting no response after an explanation.
No response.
Aww.
Yeah. You need to watch JoJo because this is my favorite one. Bring it up every single time.
I really like the sound of the bass because it's like snarly, but it's not bright. It's not mid-rangey or boxy. It's like clear.
What is that song called? I think it's called like "Around the World" by Yes. I know it's by Yes. I don't know what the song's called. Na 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 na.
I'm not gonna lie. I don't listen to a lot of Dave Matthews, but that sounds like something Dave Matthews would do.
This is a funny response. I don't listen to this artist and know their sound very well, but this sounds like some of the sound that they probably might have.
Yeah. Like, you ever listen to a song and be like, that sounds like something Ariana Grande would do, but that's not her voice.
Oh, okay.
You know? Like, you hear somebody trying to do a Kendrick, but you're like, that's not Kendrick, but it sounds like a Kendrick.
Roundabout by Yes.
Roundabout.
I have more like soundboard stuff. Hold on, I need to. Is it this one? Oh yeah, this is it. You're gonna
this
laugh at
question of would you say?
Shit! Son of a bitch! Oh no! Oh my god!
Why?
That's also from JoJo. Wait, what's the question?
The question is, would you say a cardioid mic or a dynamic mic is better for vocals, or does it solely lie on the artist? Okay, so
I think you
two
mean condenser
things.
versus dynamic.
Yeah, I think he meant condenser because cardioid is a pickup pattern, not a type of capsule design.
Oh no!
But with that said, it is completely on the artist because every voice is different. But with that said, it's also on the engineer. So don't blame the artist for something the engineer should have picked up on. But cardioid mics are great pickup patterns for the studio and for live sound, especially for live sound. If you can go super cardioid or even hyper, you're better off sometimes. Sometimes those will cause issues depending how loud the floor monitors are. But if you're talking about studio, cardioid tends to be an all-around best bet, unless you got a noisy room, at which point different pickup patterns can help. Yeah, condenser if you're looking for somebody with like soft-spoken vocals and all that.
Sorry.
Dynamic if you're looking for somebody who's loud and yelling. Like I used to do like rock and metal and all that, and if somebody was yelling at my microphone, I'm not putting a sensitive mic in front of them.
Yeah.
やれやれだぜ。
Where's the... Why?
All right, this is the one that's gonna get everybody.
Why do you have one called Turtle Sex?
That's literally what turtles sound like.
Is that an actual sample of them?
Yeah, this is what turtles sound like. I can tell you from personal experience. All right, this is also my favorite one. This is gonna get everybody. Half the people watching right now is gonna like get surprised. I love
Why did it get so loud?
I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry.
Bruh.
Lou has apparently not watched the turtle sex video.
All right, that's what we're doing now.
Oh God.
I didn't know there was an actual official one too.
Pole vault Madrid 2021.
Oh, this is it. Oh, this is the one. Okay.
Why does it look like that? Is that the male turtle?
Hold on. Wait a second. Give it some time. It's gonna develop.
Why is it so... The way it's breathing, its shoulders and everything.
Oh, is it? It's so long.
Oh, that poor turtle on the bottom doesn't even seem to be like at all into it.
We're good.
Why?
We're good. We're done with that one. We're done with that.
What kind of Pokemon is that? He asks. I want to say an Igglypuff, but that poor Igglypuff.
Welcome to Mixed Music Podcast, where we talk about turtles having
I like
sex.
how on that one you can see the...
Bruh. No.
Oh God. Oh yeah, have you seen the Uwu video that somebody made of me? They took the logo face and they made an Uwu with it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on. There's a bunch of other good ones. Snolo says, should I get Diamond or wait for Arceus?
You know what? I'm not gonna lie. Hot topic on this one, but Diamond was not bad. It wasn't bad, but I finished it a little too soon, if that makes sense. But when Legends of Arceus comes out, I'm gonna stream every day. I kid you not. I'm gonna stream every day that one. So I'm on Team Arceus. But if you're like me and you can finish a Pokemon game in a week, if you were to really focus, you could knock out Diamond and just, do that and then get Legends of Arceus. But obviously budget permitting.
I think I haven't even played a Pokemon game in forever. So anyway, what I need to do
Sounds
is
like
I
a
need to
Pearl
now...
kind of guy.
The what?
A Pearl kind of guy.
I played Ruby.
Well, that's a different generation. But you know what? Ruby is what I chose. So, you know what? Bump it.
Okay, so we're gonna sign off pretty soon here. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask us. But that was it for the Mixed Music Podcast. I'm gonna take the rest of the day now to upload these episodes in these upcoming weeks, or sorry, in the next hour or so. I'm gonna upload a couple of these episodes and schedule these out, get these going for you. And on top of content, if y'all care at all, you can follow me on Instagram. I've been making a lot of Instagram content recently. Can I show you the reel that can I show the followers right now, people that are watching I need to show people mine.
Hey, it's Rich. I'm really rich.
This is the one. I'm so proud of this one. I love this one.
I like how the baby's just bouncing around.
I like that one a lot. Well, here's me and Lou in a podcast form.
Have you mailed that? You need an idea for What about that text? Where are those? Dinner? You haven't done... Oh, check for your... It's snowing? What is he... The decorations gotta... The dishes need... I should switch the... Coffee? Did you get... Have you mailed that?
Coffee?
That's
Any
me and
idea
Lou.
for-
That's me and Lou.
The ending is totally me.
This one is really random.
I actually wanted to make one of these,
Hey,
but it was going to be
Spider-Man,
a completely left
Thank you for
version
saving
of
me,
that.
you know. I'm a big fan of yo. I'm a big fan of yo.
This is the voice I get.
Hey, Spider-Man, thank you for saving me, you know. I'm a big fan of yo. I'm a big fan of yours, and you know what? I actually make music. If you want to just listen to this beat, I got this song. I think it's perfect for the scenario because I was coughing the other day, and I just want to let you know something. I think you got it too now, huh? Yeah. I got the cut on now. You got the cut on now. Hey, Spider.
That makes
Why?
no sense. It makes no sense. Here's another classic.
Another day has gone.
This one did really, really well. Reached 30,000 people.
It cost that much cause it took me years to master.
Here's the secret to this.
You're free to try if you think you do it faster. But it would likely turn out shit cause you simply haven't practiced it. It cost that much cause it took me years to... It cost that much cause it
So
took
the secret
me
to this
years
one is that for the time lapse, if you look really, really carefully, if you slowed this down, you'd notice that I'm not actually mixing. I just wanted to make a quick time lapse to put a sound over, so I just pulled up plugins and then closed them. That's all I did as I scrolled around the map. So, like for example, I actually never mix from the mixer window ever. And you know that. As you see the mixer window a few times because I was like, I don't know what to make it look like I'm
cause you
mixing.
simply haven't practiced it.
And then this is the one I made today. This one's dumb. This one's really dumb. I'm sorry.
I'm not doing shit today. If I move a muscle, then it better be paid. Nothing but time on these pretty little hands. I'll say it again. I'll say it again.
By the way,
I'm not doing shit today.
I've been looking for that song all day because I've been singing it for the past 2 weeks.
This song specifically?
Yeah, like Anna asked me to take out the trash the other day, and I was like, I'm not doing shit today.
I just followed the dude too. I think he's a great example of making micro content that works.
Did you see the music video that he posted where it's just him in the backyard? He stands to the left of the camera and the lyrics just roll down, and he just like does a 2-step. Have you
He
seen
does
that?
a lot of stuff like that. He does like a bunch of minimalist videos, and it's actually really great. Turns out I looked into him a little bit. He's an audio engineer.
Yeah.
And a producer. That's so cool. Anyway, on that note, thanks so much for watching. Thanks very much for joining us, and happy mixing, my friends. Stay saucy. We'll see you next week.
Don't forget to take your car to Jiffy Lube.
it.